You know, there's a story being covered up by the mainstream media where government employees have been paid, actually paid, and are required to go to political rallies headlined by Nancy Pelosi and Jesse Jackson Jr. It's all a stooge. It's a stooge game. Joining us now on the Savage Nation, Andrzejewski, with more details on this story. Andrew, what is this about?
Hi, Michael. Happy to be on the program today. We've been working on this story for 4 months, Michael, and what we've been able to uncover is that an Illinois state agency literally functioned as the community outreach arm for Operation Push, Rainbow Push Coalition in Chicago. 2 weeks, 243 official emails, 8 state directors on those emails, 5 show up at the event, and they admit now that they do require and pay for up to 76 state employees on a Saturday when Nancy Pelosi flies into Rainbow Push National Headquarters in Chicago and endorses Jesse Jackson Jr. for Congress 17 days ahead of a contested primary.
Well, why is there no outcry? Because no one ever heard of it.
Well, the outcry, Matt Boyle, and he's the same reporter at the Daily Caller that broke the Fast and Furious scandal on a national basis. Matt Boyle picked this story up. We really couldn't get traction amongst the Illinois state media. Just a handful of great radio stations covered this, and only one newspaper in the state. Boyle picked it up, and it was front page at the Daily Caller, and then Matt Drudge ran it on his website for the entire day on last Tuesday. Now, thank you, Michael, for covering this on a national basis. You're the first national host to talk about this, and it is a scandal that shows the underbelly of Illinois corruption and how it feeds into the national framework.
Aren't there rules against this in the United States of America?
Well, there is. There's state tax dollars involved in this. There's federal tax dollars involved in this. There's taxpayer money at all levels involved in this. So the state agency does admit, because this is a federal education challenge grant, that federal dollars were used to pay for the workers to be there. State dollars were also used. So it's state tax money, federal tax money, and it's this kind of taxpayer abuse that must be reined in.
I haven't seen this in the media. Well, when you tell people about these stooge rallies for Pelosi and Jackson, what is the reaction?
Well, I think the new media on the web has led on this. And obviously, Michael, you're an astute national commentator that is able to hit the inflection points at the right story at the right time. And this has all the elements. It's got, our whistleblower is 22 years old. And people ask me as I travel Illinois all the time, what can I do to help save a state and save a country? Well, this whistleblower had the courage to step forward. This young lady, newly married, first job out of college. She works for the state agency, and think about the constituents she's willing to take on. Nancy Pelosi, the third most powerful woman in the world at one point as the House Speaker. The Jackson family, and they're the most powerful African-American political family in the country. An entire state agency that goes all the way to the governor of Illinois, Pat Quinn, and strikes at the underbelly of Illinois corruption. So kudos to you, Michael, for covering this story, for giving protection to this whistleblower, defending this story, and putting a big broadcast on this story.
What can we, the people, do?
Well, the prevailing wisdom in Illinois is that you cannot fight City Hall and win. So your listening audience should go to the Daily Caller website and look up this story and weigh in on it in the comment section. They should call their congressman and their U.S. senator and ask them to do a federal investigation of Pelosi and the federal dollars that were used at this event. And this was only one event on this day, one political event of 3 that the whistleblower alleges in her sworn affidavit. Here's the first one. The state employees were required to be there early, a half hour early, where they were congregated in the second floor hallway, and Jesse Jackson Sr. had a meeting in a room adjoining that hallway with candidates and politicians addressed by the title of judge and senator. When that meeting wrapped up, with cameras flashing, Jackson and the candidates and the politicians were brought into that hallway where the state workers were used as props. They looked like campaign and Jackson supporters during a campaign season, and so that was the first event. The second event was where Pelosi endorsed Jackson Jr., and then the third event, and this is a pretty stunning account in the 2,200-word affidavit by the whistleblower, Jackson Sr. and the state workers and leaders from Operation Push are put in the same room for a private meeting. And in this meeting, Jesse Jackson Sr. gives the state workers job coaching, and this is what he told them. He told these workers that work in our high schools, and they work with low-income and firstborn children to help them go to college with federal loans and grants. And he said, don't worry about loading those students up on an excessive amount of student loan debt, because Pelosi and the National Democrats, they're eventually going to forgive that debt. And just on the promise of loan forgiveness, you have a brand new Democratic voting bloc.
What's happening now?
Well, we hear that there are liberal journalists in Washington, D.C. that are chasing Nancy Pelosi, asking her to go on the record on this story, because the liberal journalists actually are disgusted with the fact pattern that we've identified. So we believe it does have legs. Matt Boyle at the Daily Caller, he's going to continue to pursue this story, and I can tell you we have evidence that we're going to bring forth over the next couple of days and weeks that this story has further legs.
Well, what's next?
Well, I hope we see people lose their job in Illinois. I hope we see the state executive inspector general open a file on this, and I hope to see that the FBI or the Attorney General of Illinois, Lisa Madigan, open an investigation. And if there was law breaking, and we believe that there's a high probability that the Hatch Act was violated, that state law prohibiting political activity was violated, I would like to see indictments and prosecution, and that's the only way to clean up the corrupt culture here in Illinois.
Where can we read more?
People can Google Good Illinois and go to For the Good of Illinois PAC, which is our website, and read and hear all the radio accounts, including a podcast of this show, and all that what the newspapers in Illinois have written about this, or go to dailycaller.com, look up Matt Boyle, and see the full account that he it was very well done that Matt Boyle put together.
Andrew, thanks again for being with us on the Savage Nation.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'd love to come back on the show as further legs of the story develop.